Show up to my door in uniform.
It gets better.
Yeah, with our
I love you.
Yeah, all right. That was not a good thing. Give me one extra. I thought actually 7 grade kids.
I wanted to tell you why we did that.
Oh.
So
You should have just been like,
Okay, friends, so it's 6 o'clock, so we get started. For those watching tonight's meeting via Diligent Community, the meeting is available live streamed via the Diligent Community platform. Please note the chat feature is not monitored. Public comment is accepted in person. A link to the video will be posted to the Diligent Community website immediately following this evening's meeting. To improve the sound while listening to the meeting, please turn up the volume on your computer and turn up the volume on the Diligent Community site. The meeting packet for tonight's meeting is located on the Diligent Community site. For those attending tonight's meeting, bathrooms are located in the foyer through the double doors. There are 2 emergency exits from this room, the doors behind you or through the foyer. If you haven't already, please sign the white attendance sheet on the podium in the back of the meeting room. This is a business meeting. The board asks for your cooperation to maintain a quorum. Please be considerate and refrain from interrupting board members and other speakers. To improve the quality of the sound, there is a boom microphone directed towards the commissioners in this corner of the room. The microphone will likely pick up additional audience noise and sidebar conversations. Calling to order the November 2nd, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting. Please stand for roll call.
Commissioner Hemmings?
Here.
Commissioner James?
Here.
Commissioner Rapp? Present. Commissioner Root?
Here.
Commissioner Tyson?
Here.
Commissioner Lesson is absent. Commissioner Proto?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Item number 2, additions or changes to the agenda. I have one. Adam Simon, our Park District Attorney, has comments he would like to share. So that I would like to insert immediately following this point. So this will be item 2A, slightly before remarks to visitors. I need a motion, a second, and then a voice vote. Motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Adam, do you want to go ahead and take it away?
Adam, are you there?
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So thanks for giving me an opportunity to address the committee meeting tonight. It's come to my attention that there have been some accusations against some city commissioners that they're acting in an unethical or an illegal way in relation to their participation in the Winnetka Caucus Council process. I wanted to address this up front and make sure I give my opinion publicly. Based on the information that I have seen to date, I have not observed anything that is illegal. Park commissioners retain their First Amendment rights to act as individuals and to engage in political activity on their own time and using their personal resources and personal accounts. As long as the park commissioner does not use park district resources, which includes park district accounts, they are allowed to engage in political activity on their own time. If you disagree with that, that is a political opinion, but there's nothing that is illegal about a park commissioner in their own name and on their own time and in their own accounts engaging in political activity, especially as it relates to the Winnetka community. So that is the summary of my opinion, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from commissioners? Okay. No, I see no hands raised, Adam, so I think that you've made that clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anything
Thanks,
else?
Adam. No, I will plug them in when we get to the closed session.
Okay.
Thanks,
perfect.
Adam.
Okay.
Thanks.
Item 3 is remarks from visitors. Remarks from visitors is your opportunity to address the board on any issue. When called upon, please come to the center position at the podium. In front of the commissioners, speak loudly, state your name for the record, and speak directly to the board. Keep all comments right around 3 minutes. This is not a question and answer forum, so please do not expect a response or answer from the park board this evening. If you prefer to share your comments in writing, you may use the comment cards which are available near the sign-in sheets. Any park district staff will accept your card to be shared with the board. I'm going to look for a show of hands. The first speaker, if you raise your hand, there might only be one. Ted, come on up.
There is only one, which is awesome because it will feed right into the majority of my comments.
Your microphone's on.
I've never stepped back from what I've said. In any case, hi, Ted Winnichenko. So first, I just wanted to address this whole thing about the parks, Elder, Centennial. All right, fine, we should go ahead, that's good. But I would caution that there should be nothing installed on any land that may ultimately be swapped away. I am certain that the other entity will be able to finagle any fencing, anything that's been put up on land that they eventually get because of what the village did. They can't do it, so we should proceed, fine. But if we're gonna put up fencing, can't put it up on that last 70 feet, because once you put it up, they'll get it. And that brings me to the other idea that this whole dog park thing, first of all, again, I don't think it makes any sense. I do think it's against the public trust doctrine and all that stuff. But people have used, I think, people have referred to the Montrose Beach dog park. It's come to my attention that that park has never been, those fences have never been approved by the IDNR. The park district did that without authorization, and that apparently has been brought to the IDNR's attention, so I guess they're looking into it, who knows. And this board went ahead because of this whole 83% of people saying that they were interested in the beaches being fixed and stuff. And I agree, that's fine. But I would also point out that the caucus said 40% of people said that the parkland should never be sold to private developers. 30% said they should be additional parkland. 20% said park should never be sold to anybody for any reason. That's a plurality of nearly 90% of respondents that felt that any loss of land was not appropriate. And I think that although the board probably has issues and there's probably a lot of things that it can't or chooses not to discuss for reasons of confidentiality, I think that there should be more communication on this. And this brings me to my last and main point. I am sorry. I do feel that although I try to be factually accurate, I do feel that perhaps in recent months I have become more abrasive in some of my comments. Now, I think the last time I was here, I was coming off of what I saw happening when I spoke at the village, where I saw individuals smirking and laughing as I spoke. And I perhaps generalized those perceptions to everyone. And I do feel that civility is important. And so I would like to apologize for my behaviors if they were perceived as personally affronting anyone, because it's not what I intended and it's not what I hoped for. But civility is a two-way street. This counter, and I would argue that at times, statements from, I'm going to use the word most, some of the members of this party, of this board, were less than civil. And this timer is based on a fiction. I'm the only person giving comment, I'm sure. This 3-minute limit is not anything that's ever been put into law. The law just says that you can make rules to preserve civility and decorum and efficiency and stuff like that. And I would argue that putting up a timer that flashes a big red sign when it hits 3 minutes is not a civil thing to do, because it doesn't allow for people to speak freely and normally, right? When we have a conversation, I'm gonna stop soon, but I'm the only one today, so and it's perfect, because I'm the only one today. When we speak, right, we're not standing there with a stop or saying, okay, I'm gonna talk for 90 seconds and then you can talk for 90 seconds. We speak until our idea is done. I have always tried to abide by the idea that I shouldn't stand up here for 15 minutes as I've seen other people do and babble about things that are meaningless. I've tried to keep it around 3 minutes. And if we're talking about civility, civility has lots of aspects to it. I will try to be better for me, but I think that you guys should reconsider how you enforce this 3-minute idea. Having a big red screen and a hard cutoff may not be the right thing. And today I'm the only person talking. Did we have to have it? No. Maybe it would have been more civil if we didn't. So I will try to do better. I can only control what I do. We only can control what we all do. We can't control other people. So I would ask that everyone try to improve. Have a nice night.
Thanks, Ted. Any other comments? Anyone else want to raise their hand? Okay, thank you. Item number 4 is communications. JP?
There are some communications, a op-ed from Justin Ishbia, as well as responses to that item. There are some comment cards from the last, second to last farmer's market that are in the packet. There's some information regarding the Nick Corwin Playground reopening, and the donation. But most notably, there is on page 41 of your packet a communication regarding Padurma's recognition of the Winnetka Park District and notably Andrew Cabrera for safety. So Andrew's here to give some insight into what he has done, what the agency has done as a whole, and how Padurma recognized the Winnetka Park District.
Sure. Thank you for having me here tonight. I don't really have anything super prepared, but it was brought to my attention that you were made aware of the article that I was asked to comment on for about the last year or so since the passing of our beloved colleague, John Barrett. I've had the honor of taking over the safety committee. And really, I have a great committee. I've got a great set of supervisors that support me. And we've worked very hard to send a lot of individuals to a lot of different trainings to keep ourselves safe, to keep things moving forward. I've tried very hard to focus on the things that we've had issues on in the past, with different incidents that I've seen. So we've improved the way that we handle our, first aid kits, our AED, notifications of, for patrons and user groups to know where things are, just to keep things clear. Greg Fields has attended a lot of trainings with me, and we've tried our best to bring a lot of that stuff back to the Park District. So it was a nice honor, and I was, I was very excited to kind of share that with people. So it was, it was nice when Padurma approached our district to make, to use as an example. So I appreciate all the support that I've gotten, from Costa and Greg and yourself, JP, and we're just going to continue to move forward and keep things safe. And
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So thank you.
Costa.
New business, we have item 5.1, the 2024 budget presentation. Jim Crock.
appropriate if I moved over there so I can see the presentation?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a great idea.
Maybe too high.
Sit right here after presenting.
You're welcome. Give you a moment to settle in. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Coyle and other commissioners, for your time and your attention this evening. This is the third of 3 budget presentations for the 2024 proposed budget. I'm sure you're as excited to get through this process as the rest of us are, so I'm going to dive right into it here. The purpose tonight is to go over the corporate and non-enterprise funds for the Park District. We also talk about the major capital fund as part of the presentation as well. During the presentation, Kate Erickson is going to talk about a marketing plan for 2024, and then Greg Fields is going to talk about the parks and the garage portion of the budget as well, to add some insight and answer any detailed questions you might have in those areas. The next meeting, November 16th, we will be presenting the tax levy for approval from the board. I will be introducing that to you this evening and going over some of the high points, see if you have any questions, so you're familiar with it when it's presented in 2 weeks. We will have the full budget available on the website no later than Monday of next week. We are required to have it available to the public for 30 days before it is voted on by the board. The idea is that the 30-day period will expire before the December 14th meeting, at which point we will introduce the budget for approval to the board at the December 14th meeting. All right, thank you for that. We're going to jump right in here. All right, thank you, Commissioner Rapp, for the suggestion of including an org chart. That makes perfect sense. This gives a sense of the overall structure of the Park District and our staffing for 2023 into 2024. The only major difference compared to past years is the Kemper Sports management of the golf course. Again, going forward in 2024, we'll have no employees, direct employees working on the golf course. It will all be done through Kemper Sports. This is a recap of the meeting 2 weeks ago. This is our revenue projection for 2024. We are expecting to bring in $13.5 million in revenue. The large portion of that right here is based on property taxes. That's slightly more than half, about 55% of our overall revenue is based on property taxes. User fees and program fees make up another approximately 40%. 35 to 40%. Expenses. Some good news. Late last week, we heard back from Blue Cross Blue Shield. The medical insurance premiums came in lower than we had originally budgeted, so we were able to revise our expenditures down. Wrong button, sorry about that. Our overall expenditures are actually lower than what we had shared with you 2 weeks ago, so that is a little good news in our favor. All funds overview. Once again, the operating expenses are lower than what we presented 2 weeks ago because of that reduction in medical insurance premiums. Again, we had budgeted a 10% increase. They came in essentially flat. So that is a significant improvement for us, significant benefit for us, and you rephrase that. Reserves and fund balances. Again, we are projecting, based on that new information, we will finish the year 2024 with $12.191 million in available reserves. So we'll be well funded through 2024 and into 2025. Operating revenues, as alluded to on the chart previously, $13.5 million is expected. Once again, the difference between the 23 budget and the 24 budget had to do with the delay of the 2022 tax disbursement. We've discussed that previously. Operating expenses, once again, this number has come down about $45,000 to $50,000 because of the reduced medical premiums. I'll go back. There's a bullet point here I forgot to remove. This 10% increase in medical insurance is not relevant anymore, so that will be removed from the presentation. This is a new slide. I wanted to share this. This is the current standing of the Winnetka Parks Foundation. This is the reserved funds in the foundation for various purposes. Seven Family Boat Launch, this is where they are towards their $450,000 goal. The Dwyer Park Gazebo and the Green Bay Trail were both we are the beneficiaries of gifts from the Winnetka Women's Club. We received money in the past for the Tower Road Pavilion. The Platform Tennis Club has $26,100 remaining from the money they gave us in 2022. That will be applied to capital expenses in 2024. Beaches and Lawn Storage Lottery, this is money that is we have in reserve from that process. We will see more money coming into that for 2024 through new space bids and lottery opportunities. We occasionally receive gifts for memorial benches, trees, stones, etc. We have all that gathered in one fund account. We have a general parks account for donations, and the AC Nielsen Tennis Center just had a recent fundraiser. This is the balance was left from that women's round robin tournament. And then we have $50,000 in our unrestricted funds for various purposes. The point I want to make here is that this is in addition to the reserved and restricted funds in the other funds in the budget. This is not included in those restricted funds. This is in addition to. So there were some questions about that. I wanted to clarify that for everybody. Are there any questions on what we've talked about so far? Yes, Colin.
As far as the decrease in medical, is that a benefit of having a much younger staff that is coming in, as well as losing the golf course direct employees to Camper?
Both of those are contributing factors, yes. All right, we go into the general fund. General administration. The general fund is the steering wheel for the park district. It provides strategic direction, fiscal management, risk management, overall performance evaluation, and resource allocation throughout the park district. The operating revenues for this fund are expected to exceed the operating expenses for 2024. We will see a slight decrease in the reserves in this fund because we are transferring $135,000 to the paddle tennis fund for capital projects in 2024. We've discussed that during the long-range capital plan, and it's reflected here as well. General fund overview. We expect to begin 2024 with about $2.6 million in reserves. We are projecting $4.6 million in revenue. Most of that will be property taxes. Operating expenses about $4.1 million. Net operating income, $459,000. We have budgeted $671,000 in operating capital expenses in this fund. The transfer out to the platform tennis fund, we just discussed. Total expenses of about $4.9 million. The net fund income, net fund loss, $347,000. We will still finish with ending reserves of $2.29 million, which is well above the 25% minimum reserve we are required to maintain per Park District policy. General administration. General administration is going to be higher than it was in 2023 because we are seeing more interest income. Our interest income for our low yield, low risk investments, CDs, short-term notes, et cetera, are aggregated in the general fund. We'll see that here in just a moment. So this is what we are budgeting for 2024 for interest income, $475,000 across the operating funds for the Park District. Miscellaneous income, we get occasional subpoena requests for personnel files, birthday parties, things along those lines. So we get little money that is uncategorized, and so we put this into miscellaneous income. So we're projecting income for the general administration of $476,000. Expenses, salaries and wages, there's a slight increase. Most of that is inflationary pressure, cost of living adjustments. Supplies are essentially flat. Repair and maintenance is essentially flat. Program and maintenance services. In the 100 and 200 funds, you're going to see increases in program and maintenance services for a couple of reasons. One of the largest reasons is an increase in our expenses for background checks on our seasonal and part-time personnel. D36 requires anybody going into their buildings to have a national background check. This funding allows us to be compliant with that statute. We figured it was wise to do that for all of our seasonal and part-time people as a precaution, especially when they're interacting with children. So you're going to see an increase in services as a result of that. Utilities are essentially flat. Oh, wrong button, sorry. Allocations is down. The interest income that I discussed a few moments ago offsets the allocation of the administrative overhead to the various funds and various departments, so that's why it's lower than in 2023. All right. Corporate administration. I'm going to turn it over to Kate Erickson here to talk about the 2024 marketing plan. Kate, you want to come on up?
Evening, everyone. I'm just going to kind of go over a high-level look at what we're planning for this next year for marketing. We'll be hiring. We'll be kind of switching up our marketing team a little bit. We'll be hiring a marketing coordinator just to kind of help with the day-to-day, kind of more administrative tasks. And we also, this past summer, we had a marketing intern that was from U of I, a local Winnetka kid, I shouldn't say kid, young adult. And it was a really positive experience, so I think we'll be looking at doing something similar this summer. She was able to help us out with a lot of the events and different programming that we have. As you know, summer gets really busy around here. And we'll be adding to our digital footprint. A kind of an interesting statistic to keep in mind, 98% of consumers use the internet to find information about local businesses, which is an increase from 90% in 2019. So we realize that we really kind of have to stay relevant, stay up with current trends, so we'll be doing a lot more around just kind of changing the digital landscape that we can be involved in. We'll be doing that through, we realize that we have some really great stories to tell about the Park District, some of the different programming that we have, different events, some of the stories behind the scenes too. And that will help as well with kind of increasing our presence online. We've been doing a lot of video, and we'll be illustrating through video. We'll continue to do that because I think people really enjoy that aspect. And we'll be looking at optimizing our website further by making it a little bit more searchable and just adding some new enhancements. We're increasing our signage. So what that means is just some of our well-traveled facilities, kind of increasing some of the different signage there. Over at Skokie Playfields, changing up maybe some of the pole banners. We'll be adding some that are currently not there. So just different aspects like that. We'll also be enhancing our digital and social media advertising. We really see a need to be kind of going back to the whole digital footprint, but increasing some of the advertising dollars through social media. So we'll be doing a little bit more advertising through Facebook, through Instagram, sponsoring some posts to maybe get more exposure for some of our events and that type of thing. And partnering with some local media such as North Shore Moms, which is an online platform, just some local ways of kind of getting in touch with our community. So that's kind of like a very high level look at what we'll be focusing on this next year. And any questions or anything?
Thanks, Kate. Okay, corporate administration revenues. We're going to see an increase over our 2023 year-end estimate in property taxes. I'll go into more detail when we introduce the tax levy here after the budget presentation is over. We were anticipating total revenues in this fund of about $4.158 million. It roughly equates to a 3.7% tax levy increase. For For discussion purposes, that equates to roughly an annual increase of $50 per household in Winnetka. So we're asking for a $50 per year increase from the various households to meet our expense needs for 2024. Expenses, program and maintenance services, again, you're seeing an increase here. Some of this is an increase in marketing resources like Kate just discussed. Some of this has to do with the background checks we discussed a few moments ago for seasonal and part-time personnel. So our overall total operating expenses for this fund, $3.698 million. Well within what we can afford for this fund. Any questions on the corporate administration? Yes, Colin?
Strategic plan, what have we budgeted as far as an outside consultant to assist us with our strategic plan?
We've not specifically budgeted any dollars yet. When you and Cynthia and I spoke earlier in the week, we talked about roughly $40,000 as essentially priming the pump. That is not yet added into the budget, but we can certainly do so, provided there's no major objections from anybody else here. Yes?
I just would say, I think we should be adding a lot more than 40,000 if we want to actually do the plan. Glencoe spent a couple $100,000 on theirs, Wilmette spent a couple $100,000 on theirs. I don't know if that, with other changes that are happening, is appropriate for 2024 or 2025, but I would definitely support something in this. And then I think a new proposal could come in, and if we decided to spend money later, it's possible for someone to come back to the board and we can authorize that, correct?
I believe so, yes. And I think that's something that wouldn't have to be authorized by the board, that exceeds our $25,000 threshold, so.
But I definitely think that putting in 40 or 50,000 to at least do the minimal thing that had been laid out would be important.
So I think it'd be worth putting it in and making sure that the new executive director has the opportunity to consider whether or not the strategic plan this year or in 2025 is the best time to do it. We've done similar strategies of having some of the money in calendar year A and then the other half in calendar year B. We just did that with a compensation and classification study where we paid for half of it in 2022, the other half in 2023. So if we have $40,000 or $50,000 in our budget this year, and it's more than that, and maybe we take that up in the fourth quarter, or you take it up in the fourth quarter with the new executive director, that would give her or him runway to get up to speed with the organization and then bring the strategic plan forward.
So you think 40 or 50 is enough to start?
To get started, yeah. But it's a budget, and to the extent the board wants to increase it in 2024, I mean, that would be in your purview.
So I think you have to have a viewing contest for consultants also, right? You have to have a bunch of consultants come in, make the presentations, give their pricing, give their scope, and then you would actually get a number to add to the 40 or 50.
Yeah, but the others, I mean, they were both a couple $100,000.
So again, we could put $40,000 or $50,000 in the budget with the anticipation that the new executive director would come in. We would then, vet the various consultants who would be interested in applying the cost, for the opportunity, and then we would start probably in third or fourth quarter to begin the process. So as John mentioned, doing half in 2024 and funding the other half in 2025 might be the best approach. So I'm happy to throw $50,000 into the budget if there's no major objections. I will amend this then, and I will send out a revised version to everybody.
Thank you.
Certainly. At this point, we're moving on to garage maintenance. I'm going to ask Greg Fields to come up and talk about the garage maintenance and parks maintenance portions of this budget.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm Greg Fields. I'm the superintendent of parks. And I just want to say thank you to Andy Cabrera for attending tonight too. And thank you for the information that you provided as well. So just diving into this again is going to be a kind of a high level for the 300 followed by the 400 counts. Diving right into it with expenses. As you can see, in the garage allocation from 2023 to 2024, we have an increase from $356,658 to $375,273. This provides a variance of $18,615, which is a 5% variance. This you can be highlighted With utilities, that's one area that's, with the market price of utilities going up, that's one contributing factor, as well as salaries and wages. Wages and salaries reflect the cost of living adjustments and salary adjustments based on compensation study. Repairs and maintenance, project increases due to costs for parts and availability in the industry. So moving on. Capitals. Next year for the garage maintenance budget, we are planning on replacing a portion of our parking lot up at the service center. That's long overdue. So that is one of the capital projects that's slated for next year, as well as painting of the service center. The painting has been deferred for a couple of years, mainly due to the stormwater management project and the dust that's been created from truck traffic going up and down the hill. It just didn't seem right to paint the building right before it got dirty. So we've deferred that, and hopefully the dust is settled when we attempt that one. In addition to that, we also have fuel pumps and cathodic protection system that will be part of the capitals as well. So the variance from 2023 to 2024 is $5,000. I think that's me, actually. So going into the 400 parks maintenance. So purchase of new equipment, this is 2023 highlights. Purchase of new equipment, 3 trucks. So I know we discussed this a little ways back. It does look like the order delivery of these trucks is going to be delayed until next year for various reasons. One, ordering any vehicles these days is way out. And then if you have been watching the news with some of the stuff in the auto industry, it could be delayed even further. But hopefully that agreement will get back to work. The skid steer trailer was purchased this year, so we did add that to the fleet, which was nice. And then planning and implementation of the long-range plan, LRP, project district-wide. We've worked with department heads on maintenance forecasting and just making sure that we're seeing the long-range plan as far as building maintenance and big expenses that we expect down the road. Fencing replacement, that is ongoing right now. If anybody's driven past Northfield Park, that was quite the hurdle to get over. Like an act of Congress to get permission to put that up, but that is going. And then Haproad Park, that is deferred. Glencoe backstop, we are ongoing right now, trying to get that one pushed through by the end of the year. So moving on to 2024 highlights. Small projects identified in the LRP, such as basketball court resurfacing is expected, drinking fountain replacements, and I believe in Nick Corwin Park we're planning on that, and then some trail improvements with some paving down there. Also, value engineering is also really important. We're going to continue our effort to manage costs while using sweat equity and in-house talent. So that's been a big thing that we've been pushing in our department, is just trying to use as much in-house labor in addition to some contracted services to just make sure that we're using the dollars wisely. As far as like docks, we just did that today. That's a big cost saving that used to be outsourced. So just in one day, I think we saved about $8,000, which we used to spend. So, and that was done before noon. Dredging assistance, last year we did assist with a contractor on that, which brought that cost down almost in half. So value engineering has been a big one. Haproad Playground renovation is another thing for 2024. And then continued efforts in woodland and bluff management. This is a big one. We've identified the continuation of working at Crow Island Woods, Bell Woods, Dunbar Park, but also focusing on the on 3 lakefront properties, Tower, Maple, and Lloyd, to make sure that the bluff management piece continues there, and we make sure that those bluffs are looking good. So you'll see that later on a bigger figure in the next chart as far as what we're adding to woodland and bluff management. And then continuing on, not to repeat myself, but yes, Value Engineering continues to expand our efforts in in-house services, increasing awareness with new communication with efforts for the public. So I think that's important to just have the public be aware of what we're doing and our efforts, and being as transparent as we can, just showing good faith. Maintaining standards for high levels of service to the community. That piggybacks well with the other one, and investing in our future by following the long-range plan development and implementation. All right, expenses, fun part. So just a quick overview, just looking at the transfers in from 2023 to 2024. We go from 1,564,000 and change to 1,679,000 with a variance of 115,183. You can see that the program and maintenance services is a little higher there. That's including the woodland and bluff management number that helped kind of push that to where it is. And then as far as utilities, again, that's a market price there. Wages and salaries similar to in the 300 category, why that was that way. So that's pretty much that. As far as capitals for 2024, 400. We do have paving in there for sections of the Green Bay Trail that we've identified as needing to be surfaced. It's been an ongoing thing to allocate dollars to make sure that the trail is up, kept, and then also equipment, as you can see, is quite a few, but that includes the 11 and 15, which get bumped into this next year, and then the 5 and 10 were planned already to be replaced in 2024. Fencing is ongoing, so that's going to evaporate hopefully soon here and not be pushed into next year. We just weren't sure with the ongoing struggle to get permits from everybody and their neighbor. And then we'll continue with furniture and fixtures, park benches, picnic tables, waste receptacles, just keeping the standard of Victor Stanley across the district. And then also piggyback with that is the bench donation program to make sure that if people are doing that, they get a plaque on a bench and that goes back into the coffers. And so that is it. Any questions? Yes?
I'm the only one with questions tonight here. Good grief, I'm sorry. Greg, you guys do an amazing job of keeping the Green Bay Trail clear to snow during the winter.
Yes.
Have we allocated any money into the budget to maybe clear the walkways at Elder Park, the tabletop, and Centennial? I keep writing about people slipping and falling, walking on both of those parks, so is there money to do that?
I think it's also an issue of having staff available to do that. Staffing, when we have our winter cleanup crew out there, we generally stick to the parking lots, sidewalks adjacent to our buildings, but it's, as far as sidewalks going through parks, they've never really been included. It's something to look into.
Could we consider that? Because we have people constantly slipping and falling on the walkways of Centennial and also Elder Lane.
Sure, it's something to look into. It is a slippery slope, no pun intended, where you stop, because there's so many sidewalks that cross through many parks. We do put out ice, beware of ice and slip hazard signs so that people are more careful, but it's certainly something to look into.
And then repair the gabion baskets at Maple, is that included in your
Yes,
funded maintenance?
that is included, and I know there's some that need some repair, and some of the infill has come out, and that's included in,
It's in the 1,500.
I think the 1,500. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
okay,
we
thank
went
you.
over that.
Just as a side,
Mhm.
I read for the first time our lease agreement with the village
Yes.
on the Green Bay Trail. And it says we are required to maintain the Green Bay Trail as we maintain our parks. And so, if there's a question.
Sure.
If we have sidewalks where people constantly fall inside our parkway,
Yep.
well, that's our standard. So, again, I would encourage
Mhm.
staff to really look at this
Sure.
because we have constant, every year,
Mhm.
people slipping and falling.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then just for the Green Bay Trail maintenance, not the repaving,
Mhm.
but for the vegetation, is
Yeah.
that also in this fund?
That's part of our general upkeep as far as, talking about like cutting back the sides of it. That's something that's done a couple times a year as normal operation. Our mowing crew will manage the turf areas, and then usually during our hot seasons, they engage in cutting back vegetation. And this year, we've actually worked with some of the volunteer groups down there that have been, and with Elijah Gray and some others that have been kindly volunteering their time to help pull some of the undesirable dead material out, and we've helped clean up some of those piles and process the material that was left behind from that. But it's ongoing efforts. When there's dead time for our mowing crew, when the hot season comes along, they get down there and do a lot of that.
I mean, I'd be interested in just understanding the cost of adding an additional staff person to do more plowing in other areas that would bring benefit to the community, and then also doing some more of the maintenance that we'll hear about later. So maybe that's something that after we get through the other presentation,
Sure.
we could talk about some more.
If I can interject in regards to the plowing, it's not just the plowing or the snow removal, it's also the ice control and the melt that goes along with that, and the runoff and the dieback that you get from putting down those aggregates. So that's another consideration, that we try to keep all of that out of the parks. And we basically maintain the thoroughfares that are utilized for commuter traffic or general park usage as it relates to people getting through a park site, not necessarily interacting within the park itself. So when you think of the Park of Hubbard Woods, a lot of people used to cross through there. That's something that's maintained because commuters cross through there to get to the, to the tracks or to the to Metro. Where you're looking on the lakefront, a lot of those are dormant parks where it's more winter scenery. They're closed for the most part. We do put up the signage appropriately to identify that. The trail plowing and clearing of the snow, once again, is on the egresses and access for those commuters to get down onto the platforms or get to Metro to be able to utilize those intersections. So just a little bit more history. We've talked about this, John and I, at length several times. We've actually researched and reached out to other agencies as well in the North Shore, and we're following similar maintenance practices where they do not maintain the sidewalks interior of the parks as well, just those on the exterior where there's access around or through a site. So,
With all due respect, the dog park, the dog beach is open pretty much year-round. And there are constant walkers going to the gate. So if there's a way just to keep a path, this is where folks are slipping and falling. It would be, I think, appreciated by our residents who use that amenity.
Good. Good.
thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Moving on, we're going to jump into the major capital budget for 2024. We talked about this briefly during the long-range capital plan. Most of the 2024 capital expenditures are budgeted in the respective operating funds. We do have money, $2.5 million budgeted in the major capital fund for elder centennial related projects. There is it is a well-known possibility of a $3 million donation to the Park District. That is not included in any of these budget documents. We have built this budget without those funds being considered. Operating major capitals, for 2024, the total capital budget is $4.481 million. Again, of that, $2.5 million is in this major capital fund for Elder Centennial work in 2024. We expect to begin the year with $7,077,177 in beginning reserves. Revenue, we're projecting $180,000 in interest income for the year. That is a conservative estimate. It also factors in, it also considers the possibility that we will be spending some of this capital money throughout the course of the year. It may reduce the amount of money left over for interest-bearing opportunities. Capital expenses, again, $2.5 million. A net fund loss of $2.3 million, leaving an ending reserves of $4.75 million in the overall capital projects fund going into 2025. All right, are there any questions? Okay. We'll move on into the non-enterprise funds. Special recreation, we have not yet received the final budget from NSSRA. We were the first park district to give our EAB information to them. I know they're gathering from other districts. We should get a number from them shortly. We will revise the budget as necessary when we hear from them. What I'm going to show you here, we have budgeted revenue, $225,000. Our operating expenses are projected to be lower a bit than 2023. What is not used by NSSRA, we have the ability to carry over to the following year. We're expecting to carry over approximately $23,000 from 23 to 24. So that carryover, that balance will work through, which is why this number is lower than our 2023 budget. Capital expenses, $60,000. We put that in for replacement of special needs equipment that we have in our existing parks. We expect a net fund loss of about $37,000, leaving any reserves of $347,000, well above the 25% minimum we're required to maintain. Workers' compensation, this is actually going down slightly from our 2023 budget. We didn't expend as much as we had originally budgeted. We're playing safe and budgeting a little bit more than what we spent in 2023, but we are allocating $76,000. That's what we expect to spend. We plan to maintain any reserves of $70,500 going into 2025. IMRF and FICA. The IMRF rate is provided to us from IMRF. The rate in 2024 will be 8.7%, and the FICA budget is based on 7.65% as determined by the federal government. We are expecting, we budgeted for revenue $769,630. Operating expenses, based on those percentages I showed you a few moments ago, we're expecting operating expenses of $767,888. Net operating income, a little over $1,700. We expect to finish the year ending reserves of $416,700. Again, well above our 25% minimum. Our audit fund, you're going to see an increase in this fund. Also want to point out this is the third year of a 3-year contract with Lauterbach and Amen. In 2024, we will be going out to collect bids from interested auditing firms to see who might want to work with us going forward in 2025 and beyond. And the bids we receive will determine whether we move forward with Lauterbach and Amen or someone else. We've also increased the budget. We put about $13,000 in the budget for construction and consulting invoice review. So you'll see, we originally had budgeted $18,000 in 2023. Actually, this was the 2022 tax disbursement delay. That's why this number was slightly higher. $18,000 will be budgeted. We've increased that to $31,500 for 2024 to accommodate that construction and consulting invoice review. Liability insurance, unemployment expenses increased due to termination of golf employees. We expect that to be a temporary situation that will not carry forward much longer. It will carry forward in the first 6 months of 2024, but it will fall after that. Overall increase from Pederma, wrong button, my apologies. $6,975, 3.5%. Property insurance will go up 6.6%, and general liability will go up 5.75%. So what that means, we budgeted $187,000 for our overall liability insurance expenses. We expect that to be our operating expense as well. We expect to finish the year with over $98,500 in our ending reserves. Again, about 25% higher than the 25% we're required to maintain. And last but not least, debt service. This accounts for outstanding debt service on the 2014 GO bonds. We were originally sold $6.2 million to refinance older bonds and an additional $4.9 million for finance projects at Hubbard Wood and the Lakefront. We do have other debt service in other funds, specifically tennis and the corporate fund. For the corporate fund specifically for the Wind Trust debt certificates we issued in 2021. So this is a known number, $376,923. So with this we are budgeting for revenue. If we know what we will spend, we will carry $144,000 forward in reserves in 2025. That is the end of the non-operating, non-enterprise funds. Are there any questions regarding those funds? All right, that is the end of the budget presentation, both for tonight and for the 3D in general.
Well done, well done.
Thank you. Again, we will provide a revised budget based on the conversation we had here tonight with the additional $50,000. Oh, that's you, sorry, I thought I was.
Gotcha, no, you're good.
Okay. And we will send out a revised version of the budget to the commissioners before we post it on the website for public consumption.
And when will that be posted?
By Monday of next week,
And what's that date?
the 7th of November,
And when are we meeting to finally and formally approve?
December 14th.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Monday is
You're welcome.
the
I
6th.
know you said it
Monday's the
before.
6th.
Monday the 6th, okay,
Sixth.
even better. Thank you, Monday the 6th.
We're still more than 30 days.
We're still more than 30 days in advance of the vote, yes. All right, I'm going to stay here since the next item on the agenda is also mine, but I'm going to turn over to Christine to move us along.
Oh,
Yes.
resolution? Okay, so I'll go ahead and present the resolution for the budget ordinance, ordinance number 598, an ordinance for the levy of taxes for the Winnetka Park District for 2023, being ordained by the Board of Park Commissioners of the Winnetka Park District, County of Cook, State of Illinois, as follows. Section 1, the sum of $6,482,394, or so much money as may be authorized by law, is hereby assessed and levied for the anticipated objects and purposes specified against all taxable property within the limits of the Winnetka Park District at full fair cash value as the same is assessed and equalized for state and county purposes for 2023. Hereafter set forth are the specific amounts levied for each object and purpose. Number 1, the amount to be raised by tax levy for corporate purposes, Authority 70 ILCS 1205/5-1. Salaries, $1,727,036. Supplies, $280,246. Services, $965,219. Repairs and maintenance, $121,877. Utilities, $134,127. Capital projects, $461,465. Debt service, $366,152. The total levy for the corporate fund, $4,056,122. Item number 2, the amount to be raised by tax levy for recreation purposes, Authority 70 ILCS 1205/5-2, salaries, $555,798, supplies, $102,980, services, $413,564, repairs and maintenance, $32,350, utilities, $31,084, capital projects, 0. Total levy for recreation fund, $1,135,776.
Item number 3, the amount to be raised by tax levy for insurance. Authority 745, ILCS 10/9-107. Workers' compensation insurance, $76,449. Liability insurance, $187,592. The total levy for insurance, $264,041. Item number 4, the amount to be raised by tax levy for audit expenses. Authority 50, ILCS 310/9. Audit expenses, $31,500. Total levy for audit fund, $31,500. Item number 5, the amount to be raised by tax levy for Illinois municipal retirement purposes. Authority 40, ILCS 5/7-171. IMRF contribution, $406,485. Total levy for Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, $406,485. Item number 5, the amount to be raised by tax levy for employer Social Security contributions. Authority 40, ILCS 5/7-171, and 40 ILCS 5/21-110. FICA contribution, $363,145. Total levy for employers' Social Security contributions, $363,145. Item number 7, the amount to be raised by tax levy for handicap purposes. Authority 70, ILCS 1205/5-8. Payment of Park District's share of the expenses for the Northern Suburban Special Recreation Association, $225,325. Total levy for handicapped fund, $225,325. Total amount levied, $6,482,394. Summary. Total tax levy for general corporate purposes, $4,056,122. Total levy for recreation purposes, $1,135,776. Total levy for insurance purposes, workers' compensation insurance, $76,449. Liability insurance, $187,592, for a total of $264,041. Total tax levy for audit expenses, $31,500. Total tax levy for Illinois municipal retirement purposes, $406,485. Total tax levy for employers' Social Security contributions, $363,145. Total levy for special recreation purposes, $225,325. Total amount levied, $6,482,394. Section 2, pursuant to Section 4-4 of the Park District Code, 70 ILCS 1205/4-4, neither the budget and appropriation ordinance of the district for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2023, and ending January 31, 2023, nor any other budget and appropriation ordinance is intended or required to be in support of the tax levy made in this ordinance. Section 3, that forthwith, upon the passage of this ordinance, it shall be the duty of the Secretary of this Board to file in the office of the County Clerk of Cook County, Illinois, a copy of this ordinance properly certified by said Secretary as to its enactment, accompanied by the certificate of the presiding officer as to compliance with the truth and taxation law, all within the time specified by law. And said county clerk is hereby directed to extend the tax to produce the amounts levied herein as provided by law. Section 4, the ordinance shall be in full force and effect immediately on and after its adoption as required by law. And there's a signature block. Do you want me to read that
No,
also?
that's nice.
Okay.
Thank you for going through that, that was a lot.
No problem. Practicing my reading skills.
So-
That'd be nice, right?
As I touched on before, this is a responsible tax levy for 2024 purposes. It increases the overall tax $210,694 compared to 2023. That, based on the number of households in Winnetka, is an average increase of $50.12 per household. That number goes down when you factor in the houses in Northfield and surrounding communities that participate in the Winnetka Park districts as well. This is again, a reasonable increase for the services and programs that we provide to the community. Are there any questions regarding this tax levy? Or this proposed tax levy would be rephrased?
We missed a couple items from the prior agenda point. So will those, the tax levy ordinance, they won't affect it if we discuss the, like, we have budget, the tax levy is the tax levy.
Correct.
And then we can still
You can still
talk
talk
further about those
items
other budget
2 and 3,
items.
yes.
We can go back to them?
Yes.
Okay.
So if there are no questions, thank you for your time, and I will take my seat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we moving on to 5.3?
No, I think we're moving back to 5.1, number 2, right?
Okay, perfect. 5.1, number 2, lakefront operations. Who's speaking on
So I'll take that. So I think there has been some level of interest to ensure that we consider different steps for lakefront operations and or specifically Lloyd Beach and some safety opportunities or viewing stands. So I think Commissioner Root, you may have raised that as a topic.
I have 3 items, if I may.
Okay.
And it isn't me raising it, it's our constituents who are coming and raising this. I believe we heard from a former commissioner in comments last time, where she was talking about no matter how we try, we have swimmers at Lloyd, and that it would be nice to have, you know, some degree of protection for those swimmers, aside from having, oh, it was actually another resident came, also talked about this, that we well staff our boat launch, but there's really no one looking after swimmers in the coves that are to the south of boat launch, and there have been some near misses. The other question I had was one on whether it would be prudent, and I'm glad Andrew's here tonight, to have a safety audit of our beachfront with a third-party consultant actually coming in and giving us some suggestions and guidance, and I'm just throwing this out.
Okay.
And then the third question that I had was whether it would be prudent to increase our consulting security coverage of our lakefront during the season, because it appears that you can't be everywhere at once. And I don't know, what's that company called?
Selden Security.
Yeah, and so those were kind of the 3 issues, if this is on because of my questions.
Yep, so Selden Security, just sort of go in reverse order, they never were part of the park district until we invested in Lloyd Beach. And that investment prompted a hiring of Selden to rove up and down our beachfront from 8:30 at night until 2 to 2:30 in the morning, from Memorial Day to Labor Day. So that is a unique addition to our expense to provide that security. So to the extent that we have additional security during the day, that's where the Winnetka Police Department comes into play. So I think we're well in hand as far as beach security, unless you have some other suggestion.
With all due respect, I guess it was last summer I met with Mr. McKay, and he used to talk about having an all-terrain vehicle that used to go up and down our beachfront. I don't, you were with me, I do believe, during that meeting. This is when we were looking at relocating the dog
Park?
beach. Yes,
Yeah.
and so he came to join us, and he talked about having an all-terrain, I don't know what to call it.
ATV.
And you may,
An ATV, UTV, some kind of.
yeah,
Have we done that before?
We have never done that. The police have their own UTV that they utilize for their purposes. I can't speak to their programming or how they maintain the beaches as far as security. I can't speak to that because I don't know. But I know when we had low lake levels, when there was an opportunity to traverse most of the beaches, they would go down there occasionally and be able to drive the lakefront. But with higher lake conditions and a lot of sand nourishment, or excuse me, sand littoral drift movement, that isn't necessarily able to do any more.
We'll talk with the police department and see if they can reinstitute that or what their considerations are.
I know
that would
that
be
a vehicle would be the optimal utilization. I think it comes down to people on site, and it comes down to supervision, to be perfectly honest. People being responsible for their actions at the park sites. I know I'm probably speaking out of turn here, but
Far away.
there's the reason that we have the signage in place that we do. The parks are closed at a certain hour, and people still choose to do as they choose and go beyond those rules and regulations. And unfortunately, a lot of time that puts the park district in a precarious spot, because unfortunately, we get blamed for those ramifications. Even though it's signed and it's closed, they choose to utilize it. So we can definitely bump up our security. It's gonna come at a higher cost, but once again, where does that balance be struck properly? And that's up to the.
Can't be
board to
everywhere at
decide.
all times.
So.
So the safety audit. So the great news is that our park department and our recreation department, most notably for shoreline purposes, works very closely with PDERMA. So there's pre-season training that's hand in hand with PDERMA. There's also spot audits. So PDERMA and or outside third party will spot check our beaches where we have lifeguards to ensure that training's taking place around the clock or when lifeguards are off duty. Make sure that we're properly staffed in the lifeguard stands. All the pieces of the puzzle are in place, and it is truly a spot audit that takes place. So,
Correct, yeah, on the weekends at adverse times, it's every Tuesday it's 9 o'clock, it's Saturday morning or at 10, could be Sunday at 2 o'clock. There's a third party that PDERMA uses to spot check us to make sure that we're in compliance with our regulations for what they manage for us.
yeah.
And
And
that's
the
a
good news is
collaboration that's been ongoing for years.
we've had no beach incidents when we are open. We've had none. So, touch wood that we continue that. The swimmers at Lloyd, I think that's just a management of staff. So the signage does say no swimming. We have had staff trained to ensure that there's somebody monitoring both in North and South Cove. So we'll have to talk with Matt Barton to ensure that we either have additional staff dedicated to that responsibility or do something to ensure that people aren't in the water swimming. Because to your point, that's very enticing, both of those coves, and they're not supposed to be in either cove at Lloyd. So we'll have to make sure that Matt manages that.
Again, it is not to my point, sir, but rather to our residents who have come repeatedly with this question. If I may I ask a question of our new Director of Recreation? Will you also be participating in kind of an overview of what happens as far as lakefront safety issues at all as part of your new position?
Yes.
Thank you.
Elisa and I also are heading over to New Trier next Friday in the morning, which will be our second meeting with New Trier to collaboratively work on communicating to high schoolers, and inevitably we'll get to D36 to communicate with middle school and elementary school students regarding lakefront safety.
Thank you.
And then we'll also push that through to notices to the parents. So we're trying to get administrators communicating with the students and students communicating with the students.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Item number 3, any additional discussion on item number 2? Okay. Item number 3 is the Kemper Sports Winnetka Golf Club greens fees. And I just, I had a couple of conversations about this, so I just wanted to relate the information that I gathered. Vince Suarez from Kemper is happy to discuss and meet individually with any commissioners to talk about their proprietary dynamic pricing model. We have, over the course of the next 8 months before we open in August of 2024, we have not had a discrepancy between resident and non-resident rates as far as I understand since 2013. So all rates have been the same. And secondly, it is their proprietary model, but it is a model that has to be competitive on the landscape of all public courses. So we can't put ourselves dramatically out of the competitive pool because it doesn't generate any revenue. So we have some market discipline that's applied to us. And Kemper is a good partner for us because they do get a lot of data, more data than we would get when we were doing it on our own. So I hope that helps.
There was also a question regarding 3% of revenue to be invested in capitals. So Vince confirmed that that is a typo. The capital spends have already been reviewed with the board. So they're in a spreadsheet that I'll send to every board member, but that 3% of revenue representation is not accurate. He said that's a typo. So-
Okay.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
So just for everyone's edification, prior to COVID, the Winnetka Golf Club had expenses exceeding revenue averaging $300,000 per year. That had to be made up from the general and recreation reserve funds. Part of moving forward with the golf course improvements was to increase the playability, continuous cart paths, and better drainage, all which are intended to drive up the number of rounds. We also brought in Kemper, making this $10 million investment to bring in professional management. I suggest that we avail ourselves of them being best in class to deliver a performing asset, and I look forward to it.
Madam Chair.
Yes, oh, sorry, didn't see your hand. Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Commissioner James, for your comment. May I also remind all of us that that golf course was a gift from the Bull family, one of the first gifts of over 45 acres of land. And the gift was made for the benefit of the residents of Winnetka. So as we're looking at these enterprise funds and as we're focused, and I understand, we need to be focused. We don't on having a fund that operates without a deficit. At the same time, I'm very sensitive that we have residents in this community that love to play golf and are not affluent. So I just want to make sure that we are responding, and typically, these people are seniors. And I want to make sure that we're responding to that part of our community. Because again, this property was a gift. So just a final thought there.
My understanding of dynamic pricing is that it's not just raising prices, it's lowering prices
No,
in
I
many
understand that.
instances
Yes.
to attract more players.
Comprehend that also, yeah.
Okay, I just had another comment that I wanted to make the other board members aware of, is that I did go back and look at the Kemper contract, and that under our contract, we have a very short window to review and provide written comments about their budget of 14 days, which is not consistent with our budget, like our formal budget approval. So that was one of the reasons why we were raising these in discussion. So I think from a budgeting standpoint, the numbers were fine, but I do think on the pricing, as we get closer understanding that a little bit better to make sure that it is in line with our duty to our residents as well is important.
Right. And we talked about why we did that. You and I talked about why we did that. We did that so that we could fall within, we knew we needed reporting information from you, and then we knew we needed to feed it into our budget. So the window is a little bit tighter from Kemper for that reason. We knew we needed that input from.
No, I know. The concern I have is just that it's, after the 14 days, if we have not provided written comments, it's assumed that we have approved their budget,
Yeah.
which is, like, for other items, we still have the flexibility to make revisions unless we've provided written comments saying we'd like to reserve the right to review your budget until we vote on the overall budget.
All right. Any other comments with regard to Kemper Sports Winnetka Golf Club greens fees? Okay, I've already read the 17-page ordinance. We're moving on to the Green Bay Trail Master Plan Study, and I think we have external presenters, right? Item 5.3. Morgan, thank you very much. It's nice to see you again. Looking rested after your marathon of producing documents for us.
Oh, sure. Okay, I'm Morgan. I'm a senior landscape architect at the Lakota Group. Talking about the Green Bay Trail process that we have gone through with the village and park district staff. So today we'll just talk about our planning process, our engagement analysis, the planning design solutions, phasing, implementation, budgeting, and then have an open discussion. So first and foremost, our project mission stems off of core values that were established from the Winnetka Comprehensive Plan, and they include enhancing the physical condition and program sustainable operations of the trail, evaluating short and long-term physical improvements for just the 2.4-mile stretch of the trail, seeking to find opportunities to collaborate and create linkages to other communities along the trail as it extends north and south, and consider adjacent land use context, environmental and vegetation conditions, and our connections to the surrounding street network, neighborhoods, and business districts. So with these missions in mind, we started in the planning process. We first analyzed and engaged with trail users, then we went into the visioning phase and produced the master plan. Our engagement included a pop-up workshop on the trail. We worked with Park District staff and the Friends of the Green Bay Trail to come out there and engage in real time with trail users on how they use the trail and issues that they see on the trail. We also had 4 focus group sessions with about 20 participants total that we held outside near the trail as well. And we had 3 online surveys with 480 participants throughout the course of the project. So some of the things we heard from our engagement and continuously throughout the process of engaging with residents and users were that they feel that the trail is almost like a linear park. They were really adamant that maintenance of the entire property be unified, designing and thinking about the trail as if it were owned and managed by one entity, and then keeping in mind the regional impact of the trail and the fact that it passes through many of these North Shore communities and finding opportunities to engage with other communities along the trail, but doing what makes sense for Winnetka. So we kind of broke our analysis down into these 3 main parts. We first analyzed the ownership boundaries of the trail. So there are pieces that are owned and operated by the village, and there are pieces that are owned by the Union Pacific Railroad. So understanding those boundaries and distinctions along the trail at various access points. And then we also just analyzed the character of the trail and defined these different personality zones, which are mainly defined by the trail slope conditions. So that was the 3rd piece and kind of the cornerstone of the personality zones. So the trail slope conditions can be broken down into 3 major sections. There's a steep slope. The majority of the trail is characterized by the steep slope condition on the east side of the trail, creating what we refer to as a below-grade condition. And this condition of the trail has created some drainage and erosion implications along this zone, which is primarily 2/3 of the length of the trail. So at about 2/3 way down, going south, the trail begins to slope into a transition up into an at-grade condition as it begins to flatten out, with the adjacent neighborhood primarily to the east. And then all the way at the south portion in Winnetka, we transition into an elevated condition over at Indian Hill, where we're completely elevated over the road. And so all of these factors of the site analysis helped us better understand the trail condition and inform our design solutions, which we categorized into 3 main categories: the hardscape and maintenance, vegetative improvements, and opportunities for activation and signage. And then we also had 4 prototype strategies to kind of see these strategies in action. For our hardscape and maintenance strategies, the key components of this were to widen the trail and accommodate a consistent 8-foot multi-use path. It's about 8 foot now, but it does vary below, and in some conditions it's narrower than that, in some conditions it's wider, so just kind of establishing a consistent 8-foot width, delineated by a solid yellow line down the middle to help, ease any conflicts with different trail users, and maintain a consistent 3-foot gravel running path on the east side. So again, these are components of the trail now, but just wanting to make sure that they are consistent and delineated. And then we also have a few opportunities for improved ADA access points and improved access points that are not ADA accessible, and you'll see those in our prototype strategies. So this section just kind of depicts our existing condition, approximately an 8-foot asphalt path with approximately a 3-foot gravel running path, but the proposed hardscape and maintenance section would really define those edges, delineate those zones, and keep them consistent. The vegetated improvements are another key part of this, the master plan. So we have broken the vegetated improvements down to align with the different slope conditions. So like 2/3 of the north portion of the trail would be a partially clearing the lower slope but integrating an upper buffer, as we have majority of neighborhoods along the eastern edge in that zone, in that personality zone. But as we move down, where we start to level out in the business district corridor, finding opportunities to selectively clear and create some visual interest between the trail and the business district, while it's still establishing new native vegetation. And then the majority of the rest of the trail, as it begins to taper up into an elevated condition, would be characterized by selectively clearing and providing understory enhancement. And the majority of our feedback throughout, we were hearing a strong desire for incorporating more healthy native biodiversity along the trail, as seen in northern portions. So we really wanted to kind of extend that through based on that feedback. And then also finding opportunities to bring in those stormwater drainage solutions. These sections characterize those vegetative improvements graphically. So partially clearing the lower slope. It's very densely vegetated currently, and I think in some ways that's an asset to this neighborhood zone on the north side. So we want to be able to clear that out, but also maintain some visual buffer. So integrating that native upper buffer through evergreen trees and native deciduous trees, while kind of cleaning up and enhancing the vegetation and health of the understory community down the slope. And then again, as we move south, selectively clearing so that we can open up those kind of visual corridors and key areas and just improve the overall quality of the vegetation on the slope. And also in turn, improving those erosion and drainage issues. And then as we move into the transit at-grade and elevated condition, just continuing those understory enhancements on the east side, while also finding opportunities for potentially some evergreen screening on the west side. This is where we saw the most opportunity with a wider buffer on the west side to potentially screen from the train without getting too close to the Union Pacific Railroad boundary, because we know they have their own maintenance protocols that we kind of want to be cognizant of. Activation and signage. Activation is characterized by people activation. I'll get more into this when we go over the prototypes, but just finding opportunities, small opportunities off trail that wouldn't impact trail users to allow for people who wanted to congregate on the trail and have activities such as like the Green Bay Trail Day or other pop-up workshops and things like that. Finding spaces for to accommodate those. And then also incorporating some wayfinding signage that would help orient people to where they are in Winnetka, what can they find nearby, what regional connections can they make, finding opportunities for educational and historical signage through improved environmental quality or highlighting characteristics of the trail, historical characteristics, which I'll get into in the prototypes, and trail access signage. So primarily indicating people where they can get on the trail, if it's an ADA access point, if it's not, where can they find that, from at the bottom and at the top of the trail. So here are the strategies in action. This is the first of the 4 prototypes. This is what we're calling the North Neighborhood concept. It is just north of the Tower Street Bridge, where there's currently an existing very steep ramp access. So in this concept, we are showing a kind of people activation spot that you can get to via a new ADA accessible ramp, really opening up the density of that vegetation and improving the understory vegetation quality, but in the background still screening from that neighborhood adjacent to the trail. And then at the ground plane of the trail, you can see the delineated path as well as the consistent 3-foot gravel strip. And we also are featuring a wayfinding signage element kind of at the base of the ramp there. In the central town concept, this is kind of near the community, the Winnetka Community House at Pine Street Bridge. There's, again, an existing ramp to get down to the trail, but it's not ADA accessible. So in this concept, we are showing kind of a different material take and different construction take on ADA accessible ramp using more of a, concrete piles, piers, and a wooden open air structure that's a lot more breathable and kind of fades into the background, allowing for new native vegetation to grow in around, and this would be kind of in keeping with the quality of the staircase on Tower. So kind of trying to use some of the same design materials that are already existing in the community. So providing this ADA access ramp down to another people activation spot with potentially a small native trail walk where we could incorporate more drainage solutions, potentially some BMPs, and highlight those through educational signage. So that's what you're seeing off in the right, or the bottom left corner. I don't know which one of these does the lasers.
Through the
Top, yep.
The top.
Okay, so right there. And then incorporating the updates to the trail surface as well. This is an example here of potential trail marker that would tell people to Pine Street this way. And we could have a corresponding sign at the top. This is the third concept for the prototype strategies, the South Neighborhood concept. This is slightly south of the access point at Willow and Wilson, I believe. So we really have some space on the west side of the trail here to kind of punch into that zone, but still be well off the UP boundary. And there are these existing concrete pylons from the old electric trail line. So we thought it would be interesting to kind of highlight those as signage pieces and just kind of bring those out, show people what they are, why they're there, bring some purpose to them, while also providing an opportunity for people to gather. And then kind of playing off the materiality of the concrete pylons in some of these bench features that is as seen in this concept here and in a few of the other ones, to bring some continuity to that material, as well as the trail updates. And then in the Southtown concept, we really have an opportunity here with adjacent kind of neighborhood context with the school being so clear nearby, and also this being at the Indian Hill Metro stop to utilize the space at the top of the bridge here and provide kind of like a tiered platform area for opportunities for people to gather, outdoor classroom, really any kind of community event, and it's significantly off-trail, so it wouldn't necessarily impede trail users, but just finding those opportunities for people activation. This also shows trail marker. We heard some interest in mile markers. I believe the trail has them now, but just maybe bringing them a little more prominence to them while still maintaining kind of a subtle quality, and improving the trail delineation as well. So we do get into high-level conceptual costs. These are broken down, this is kind of our summary page, but they're broken down further in the report. The cost for the hardscape and maintenance strategies, the vegetative improvements, the wayfinding and signage, and that total, as well as each of the prototype strategies, and that subtotal, and have a kind of full project total of 7.2. In our report, we show how this could be phased, basically starting at the north end of the trail and moving south. That's kind of one implementation strategy, particularly for the vegetated improvements. We think that this is a good idea because you already have native vegetated improvements in Glencoe, and so as to not kind of fight invasives from both ends, it would be like natural to start at the north end and kind of work your way down. But we did consider that if you were to move forward with one of the prototype projects, that those vegetated improvements would be included in those as well. So that's reflected in the numbers. Other components of implementation, we wanted to kind of just define some overall priorities. So prioritizing essential improvements, anything that's maintenance or safety related, doing those things first. Implementing low-cost enhancements first so that you can build up funds for those more costly features in later phases. Involving the community in each step of the process, making sure their voice is heard, and it's in keeping with what we heard in the master plan process, and considering overall maintenance needs. I kind of already mentioned in our implementation, we include phasing breakdown of the costs. We also show a very high-level time frame for implementation from within 3 years all the way to 15 years, and prioritized improvements in that breakdown. And then we've also started to think about identifying key implementation partners and opportunities for grants and funding. Kind of the key cornerstones of implementation are to develop a comprehensive maintenance plan, which you have, but kind of reevaluating that intergovernmental agreement between the Park District and the village to make sure that that is taking into consideration the components of this plan, if that's the goal, and making sure that that is updated and smooth for moving forward. And then this slide I added, these are what the feedback that we heard from Village Council. So continuing to work with the Park District, updating the intergovernmental agreement, those were key in that discussion, funding this project so that these ideas do move forward, finding opportunities for public funding and grants, and I think they have already. You guys have jointly gone after a number of grants already. Improving the maintenance, addressing the landscaping and invasive species on the slopes, looking at the overall time frame and how to condense it or be more efficient with that, and then keeping in mind accessibility and connections to the business district. So accessibility to the metro station and adding an ADA access point were kind of key discussion points at the village meeting a few weeks ago. And I think with that, we'll open it up for questions. Thank you.
Austin Morgan, Women's Officer.
have a bunch.
Go ahead.
Someone else wants to go first?
Okay, let's just go around the room.
Okay.
Jose, would you like to say anything?
Want to thank Morgan and the entire Lakota team, Siraj and others who've worked on this, along with the efforts from the Village of Winnetka, Emily Grimm when she was part of the plan, and then moving native Jim and others, David Shun as well. It's been a great collaboration. I think there's a lot of great ideas to be had. I think one of the key pieces is understanding responsibilities and working in collaboration with the village. And that's where I think re-identifying the current use agreement, if you will, and identifying what we can move forward with an IGA between both parties to understand what that looks like, responsibilities, maintenance, and protocols adjacent with NETRA and the UP. I think we can get there. It's just going to take time and collaboration and an effort to support by the community. But great job all around, and congratulations to Morgan, Scott, and the rest of the Lakota team for all their work.
Thank you, Morgan. It was a really good presentation. And Scott, thank you for being here tonight. My question is, where is the village as far as timing and scheduling of all this? Because they had a study session on October 10th. There's been no formal approval of this initial plan, is that correct?
Yeah, I think our last piece of the pie was to have that meeting with them, and they kind of acknowledge the plan, but I don't know.
They haven't
what the
formally
steps-
approved that.
Thank you,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was wondering. And then I know Glencoe has done quite a lot of work on the trail. So I guess one of my questions is, have you met with Glencoe to kind of see if there could be some synergy between the two villages? Because as you go on the train, like you're headed to Ravenna and you go on the train, Glencoe's done some nice things. It looks really, really nice. And so you'd think that, and maybe this is part of the presentation, that there would be a continuity as we move south.
Yeah. We have met with Friends of the Green Bay Trail, who has done most of that work in Glencoe, especially in terms of the vegetation.
Okay.
So we met with them several times throughout the process. They came to all of our events, and we've gotten really good feedback from them. I think the village has kind of gotten in touch with them, and I think the idea would be to have them as a key partner in this, work with them.
Many of the Friends of the Green Bay Trail are Winnetka residents.
Yep.
Then with respect to vegetation, have you met with like the Botanic Gardens, or have you met with other, like open lands? Well, what I'm wondering is, are we availing ourselves of a lot of the resources as far as expertise resources that are there for things I know nothing about, but I call it green stuff, because I know the Botanics has, quite a lot of expertise. I know open lands, particularly Lake County open lands, a lot of expertise.
We didn't meet with CBG and Open Lands, but identifying them as key partners is a piece of the master plan.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Jeff, you have any questions or comments?
Thank you for the overview. No detailed questions at this point, but as Coast had already mentioned, I am very interested in learning the different roles and responsibilities as they cross both the village and park district, and some potential opportunities there.
Cynthia?
Thank you for coming to present. It's very exciting to see some progress on thinking about the Green Bay Trail. I know that Mr. Gray has presented in public comments for years to try and get some attention, so that is a huge benefit. I did look at our survey, and the Green Bay Trail is our second most used asset, although I think if the state overweighted by frequency of use, it would be higher, but 14% of the individuals on our survey reported using the Green Bay Trail in the last 12 months. That was exceeded only by Tower Beach, but I suspect that those users of the Green Bay Trail are using it, some daily for commuting, some I run twice a week or 3 times a week there, or I walk my dog every day, so I think if you weighted it, it would be a lot more. So it's definitely a central place that's highly used. So from my perspective, I think it's very active. In terms of your presentation, I would really like to see more detail on the public engagement that you guys did, specifically, the survey and then the results from the survey. I know I took the survey so I remember some of it, but I did spend some time also looking at the more extensive report that you guys delivered to the village, and I can see for some of the rankings, like they're very close, so it would be good to see if that's an average of things that are, you know, love it and hate it, or people were clustered to the middle, or, you know, how that kind of shakes out. The other thing that, I mean, I know I would like to see is just a really more concrete list of the events. I know in this presentation you talked about focus groups, and the village presentation that might have been like an open house or the Green Bay Trail Day. But it seemed like there were kind of different events referenced.
There was an open house that we provided as part of our scope that we had to do, and the Friends of the Green Bay Trail asked us to participate on our own time in the Green Bay Trail Day.
Okay.
Elijah said, could you come down there and set up a booth? So it was almost a setup in a typical day being down there, a little bit different than a traditional engagement process.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, no, because I looked back and I saw that there was like an open house
Yeah.
at the village, you know, around this time last
Mhm.
year. So I feel like,
There were two, yeah.
Me too.
okay, no, I just think a list of what the
Yeah.
engagement sessions were and then the results and themes from those would be helpful in terms of interpreting and understanding the community feedback in support of a pretty, you know, expensive plan. You know, and then also just understanding like who the key players were, like was there a formal steering committee with this project? Or like it really, having not been close to it, wasn't clear like who was engaged from the village, how the park district was engaged. You know, like was there a task force, or was it just, you know, people coming to the different open houses?
We worked primarily with Brian Norcus and Emily Grimm from the village.
Okay.
And Costa. And until Brian retired and Emily moved on. So those were who we primarily worked with.
Okay.
In our steering committee.
So the staff focused
Mhm.
project.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we did have those like 4 stakeholder meetings at the beginning of the project, which were composed of business owners, trail users, residents, Friends of the Green Bay Trail, and other support.
There were some expertise from the Botanic Garden in those
There was,
focus group
yeah,
sessions. and people-
unofficially, yeah.
So I
You
think
know-
it would be helpful to
Yeah.
like lay that out in an appendix of your plan in more detail, you know, so that we could kind of just understand it a little bit better. The other comment that I had just looking at it was that I think having these access points with ADA as your metric is not necessarily going to meet the community need. Because the trail access points, you know, sometimes are used by people, for example, with bikes with trailers, which I think have a very different need for access than ADA in terms of the switchbacks. And so I just want to put that out early because I think from a design implication, that's a huge one. Like if you show up with your family to go ride a bike on the Green Bay Trail and then you can't get down to it when you could before, that will be not happy outcome. The other like big piece or big theme that came up was really considering the vegetation plan, like what's being removed, what's coming in, and how does that come out. So I feel like it would help understand the plan a little bit better to have an appendix that's, you know, saying we are removing buckthorn, we are removing the mustard, whatever. We are replacing that with these types of prairie grasses. They do all these wonderful things. You know, that will take time because I know that the buckthorn kind of pollutes the soil, and like how that transition looks, I think would be helpful to have a little bit more understanding. And then I think that in terms of considering the plan, not having some estimates of maintenance costs is a serious limitation because these landscaping plans were only successful as the maintenance. And I feel like there is probably a reasonable way to go about and benchmark that with, you know, Glencoe looks fabulous. How much are they spending to maintain the trail? How many volunteer hours are being invested in keeping the Glencoe Trail to look as wonderful as it does? I feel like there are some ways to get some data to really understand the maintenance and in a like concrete quantitative way as a starting point. And then the last thing that I feel like our board and the village should consider is, can we immediately identify a pilot area, like, the first couple 100 feet, of the trail on the Winnetka side, coming down from Glencoe, to say, let's implement, what these plantings and what this plan would look like. The volunteers have done a lot of buckthorn removal, so let's put in the actual plantings and then get some of our own data on what it takes for us to successfully maintain that, because again, that would be a source of data, it would be something actionable, it would show progress, and I don't feel like, there's no structure involved, so I feel like for a couple 100 feet, it would be like, an expanded version of butterfly garden kind of project. It wouldn't be millions and millions, but it would give us also a lot of information on what the community level of effort is, and then provide like a little bit of a laboratory for feedback. So, but no, I appreciate the plan, I appreciate the work. I mean, it's a huge community asset, and it's used a lot, and like definitely a lot of good things, a lot of reasons to be excited. And I know I had the chance to talk to Mr. Gray, and he was very excited to have the focus and plan, and he, as I said, is always out there. And he said he attended every chance he could to talk about it, and I know he's been at a lot of village meetings. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of passion behind it, for sure.
Yeah, no, I think there is from that whole group in terms of how they are. I mean, they're out there on the trail diligently working to maintain it.
The interesting thing when you were talking about data, I think this statement should be in the record, is that this genesis of this study was driven in two parts. One, by push from the Friends of the they really wanted it. They've been barking about doing this for a long time.
I know.
And so they finally squeezed some money out of the process, but they were able to squeeze the money out of the process because they leveraged the village's comprehensive plan. And the village's comprehensive plan identified that walkability in our town and the ability to have walking paths, trails, active and passive recreation, and the health pursuits that are associated with that, not to mention the connections to the school and the downtowns and all that, is one of the highest priorities of the community. And that data source actually came out of the comprehensive plan. This was a separate data source to ask people, what does it look like and what should it be to those specific users? So it's a really important asset. And at the end of the day, what really comes out of the equation is, who is the caretaker of that asset? Well, there's two bodies that are the caretaker of that asset. And part of this dialogue, part of this conversation, this whole master plan was to identify who are the best people to take care of things. In many respects, Elijah and his crew have been the caretakers of the vegetative aspect. They're the ones who have an eye towards, we need to get this cleaned up and under control. They're not talking about the paving or the striping or whatever, but that's where the conversation is really important. You just brought up the maintenance of this. It's the most important piece. All the rest of it is when there's disposable cash and projects and funding made available by different parties. But up until then, it's just the regular maintenance, because Glencoe found that it's mostly donation. Public Works gave them some money, gave them some land, and Glencoe is flat as a pancake. The difference is we have slopes, and we have neighbors that are right next to it. And the concern was that we don't have one size fit all like Glencoe, but we have a flavor like Glencoe in terms of the vegetative palette. The meaning, some of our neighbors might get really wigged out if we cut all the trees down next to their house.
Yeah.
So we talked to some of those folks, and they were okay with this blended approach to carefully doing it in a selective way, starting up at Glencoe and working our way down so that we can see the fruits of it and maintain it as a whole. Because if we start doing it hodgepodge everywhere, it's gonna fall apart.
Yeah, no, I was trying to think through that,
Yeah.
like, is there, in terms of the neighbor engagement, when you replace a parkway tree, you can get the 3-inch for free, but then if you wanna
Right.
do it a little bit better in front of your own house, then you can spend some of your own money to upgrade.
Right.
Or, so I don't know if with the landscaping, there's a path forward to do something along that line so that people who, the privacy shield is really important,
Yeah.
they can get the bigger trees
Right.
at the start. I don't know, I just thought, like that neighbor component for those people who are up against the trail, they're very gracious. I think that they want
Yeah.
it to be nice for the community, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I can appreciate that they do not want to be
they're
you know.
used to what they have right now, and to
Yes,
make any
you
change
know,
is
it'd be
gonna
at the
be a
Truman
big lift.
Show, it'd be like they're always out there for the commuters and everything.
But they were receptive. At the end of the day, they were receptive because they knew that we were paying attention to that concern. That was important.
Yeah.
Moving on to Jay's.
Just move on.
Okay.
Thanks for the presentation. It was
Yeah.
very lovely. Question I had was, and I'm just, maybe it's a dumb question, but the vegetative plan, what impact does that have on train noise? Reverberations going through the communities that border the Green Bay Trail, the train? Can you give me some idea as to how that has an impact?
I think.
Well, I can tell you the fact of the matter is unless you have evergreen plant material, there's very little noise blockage. You know, you've seen developments where there's berms and evergreen trees, those are the noise block. We don't really have that capacity, maybe on the top of the bluff. The noise attenuation, for all intents and purposes, for the residents has been their fences along there. And if you notice, everybody has a fence along there, there's a walkway for part of it, and on the inside of all those fences where they put their arborvitaes, right, to block the noise. So that's really the noise attenuation. By virtue of cutting some of the plants, some changing, I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference. In fact, what we heard from the folks in Glencoe was nobody really had a big issue with opening up some of those views, particularly adding the native habitat for butterflies. You've seen the beehives that are in there. They've got all kinds of stuff going on. And I think it's become a community asset in terms of an environmental resource for people to go enjoy that they never thought about.
Yeah, we did look for opportunities to put screening on the west side as much as possible, but it's so limited on that side,
Yeah.
so.
And Metra, anything that grows up and has a branch, they have the right to just come by and
Yes.
whack it with their cutters.
Wasted value.
Warren, take it away.
So this is the first time we've seen this. This has largely been done by staff and consultants. And my comment is that I think there needs to be a meeting of the minds between the village and the park district as to who and how this is going to get paid for. And does, just because one body approves it, the other body may have some comments and questions. So I think it would be best to work out the business aspects of this before committing to the details of the plan.
I've heard it before. I heard it when you presented it to the village, and I appreciate the comments that you incorporated that came from the village. And I do think that we've identified a couple pieces of information, the who and the how and the timing, obviously. But the Friends of the Green Bay Trail, I've pulled weeds with them, and they're passionate, and they're skilled. And we also have 4 garden clubs in Winnetka. So you could make it a little bit of a competition. That's my input, because I know my garden club would love to have a section to call their own and put down, their work, and I know that the other 4 would similarly want to help. So I think there is a good amount of volunteer resource hours available. That's my thought for the moment. Thank you very much. It's very interesting. It is a linear park. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Unfinished business, Elder Lane and Centennial Beach update.
Christina, thank you. Not too much update tonight. It's going to be fairly brief compared to recent times. Currently, staff is still working towards permit drawings as requested. And we will be circling back to the park board with those drawings and the permit application shortly. We are currently anticipating to bring that to the park board on the November 16th and then back again at the November 30th meeting accordingly. We'll have that out prior to the meeting for the board review, the Friday before the 16th, of course. And as requested, the additional renderings are currently being worked on by the Lakota Group. Morgan and I reviewed those on her return to the office, and she has taken that information in, and they are working on those renderings as well. We're anticipating those to be delivered at the 16th meeting as well. So
She's going right from here to her
Yeah.
office.
Yeah, we're gonna go work on it right now.
never
Thank you,
sleeps.
thank you.
But just want to follow up, that's where things are at currently. I don't have any updates beyond that, but I'm available to answer any questions that the board might have in regards to where we stand on any part of the project.
When you present on the 16th, will you also be presenting a critical path towards permitting and implementation?
If that is not presented on the 16th, it will be done at the following meeting on the 30th. But we are currently engaging with the village to understand what that policy, that practice is, and what we will need to accomplish in order to meet their requirements. I know I've reached out, John has reached out, as well as Christina, and we are working through the village's process right now to better understand the road ahead of us, so we can inform this.
Is
board
there a
appropriately.
defined process for the village permit?
There is a process where we want to make sure that the process is reviewed through the liaisons from the board, both boards collectively. There was a request initially for that, and I think that's step one as we continue down that road. But right now, we are working through that linear path, and we'll report back on that accordingly.
The village has their full day budget meeting tomorrow, and Chris just got back into town. So I think that it could happen as early as next week, which would be awesome for us and our timing. So that's my goal, because I think there could be some time available next week.
We're working through it, and we're gonna make sure we lay that out so the board understands what that is, and where we have control, and where, we have to follow procedures as they're currently written. So. Any other questions as it relates to Elder and Centennial Project Group?
I assume that we are going to follow through and have this priced both by land and by sea.
We will have land by sea as it relates to the bids when they come in. Our cost estimate that we have for engineering purposes is currently land-based only, but as we execute through the bid process, we will have both cost analysis to be reviewed and approved by the board. So if the board suggests that there's a cost savings, or they would rather incur the cost to do this or sea-based or water-based marine work, that will have an opportunity to be reviewed and acted upon accordingly.
I'll reserve further questions for the 16th.
Sure.
I'm sure there will be. All right. Staff reports, item number 7. Any staff who have not yet spoken who would like to speak?
I'd like to give a quick update on the rec team, and we had 2 successful pre-Halloween events just recently. We had our Pumpkin in the Woods on September 20th. We estimated close to 1,000 people came through that. It was a great event. And last weekend, we had our Harvest Hayride out here through the grounds. We served almost 300 people, I should say, between 2 hayrides. So we ran 2 tractors, I should say. So I want to thank the Parks team for creating those tractors for us, and the rec team, Toby, Matt, and James, for all of the events. I mean, we can't do this without the collaboration between the Parks team and the rec team, and serving our young families in our community for these nice fall events. So thank you all for that. This is the first year that we've been running the field trips on the no school days. We just had one yesterday, because they had a no school day after Halloween. So we actually doubled our attendance by clearing our wait list and securing a second bus. So we served almost 65 children on that trip just yesterday. So this has been definitely popular and a nice service for those families that do need to work and keep their kids busy on the no school days. And just this month coming up, we're just going to be right now, James is really busy prepping for the Winter Basketball League that will be starting real soon in the next couple of weeks. So working with the teams and getting them all formed. So that's what we have coming up.
Great, thank you very much. Jim Crocker, I'm assuming you've said everything. Okay, just giving you another chance if you wanted to. Greg, anything additional you want to add?
Things are looking good. We're kind of rolling out of the summer into the fall season here. So a lot of staff has been busy with blowouts, getting the irrigation system shut down, which is a big part of the season. In addition to that, just looking to a lot of the different facility managers to get their list in as far as winter repairs and work. A lot of small projects going on as far as the fencing project, which I mentioned is going on. Andrew coordinated painting of Maple Beach House, which looks really nice. That got finished recently. The clubhouse porch got finished as well, getting painted. So a lot of little projects and irons in the fire right now, but we're kind of transitioning out of the normal season. Our seasonals have about a month left, and that's down to the core full-time staff. But everything's looking pretty good. Just ready for the leaves to drop off so we can get that cleaned up. So.
And I'm not skipping Andrew, I'm gonna go to the second row of the audience and give you a chance, Andrew.
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to be here and present the Microderma piece. I think Greg handled most of the parks related items, so thank you.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, you got a chance to present your marketing report. Anything else you'd like to add?
Just really busy, getting everything out for the winter program, lots of e-blasts you'll see coming your way. And we're already on to spring, and we'll be looking at that, doing that brochure fairly soon. And just moving along, and lots of things kind of coming up.
Okay, Taylor?
Nothing on my end. String is running as it should.
Love it, love it.
Yes.
Costa, anything additional?
Just a few things outside of the normal. So golf course operations, punch lists are being finalized. We're working with a contractor to get outstanding items completed before winter shuts us down on a few items. Handrails are being installed as we speak. So they started on the par 3 course. They're working through that. So that will be closed out before the end of the season. Great report on some of the things over on the golf course clubhouse side. Platform tennis, we had some paving completed around the front entryway that kind of cleaned up and finished off that project in its entirety. We had a few bird baths and some settling issues that we wanted to address. I know we have future future prospects for expansion of the hut itself in future time or in due time. But for now, while that's undergoing and we're working on that process, we want to make sure that's ready for the fall/winter season. And notably, I believe John might have brought this up previously, we are looking to do a grand opening. A date is to be determined right now. We're looking towards the end of November, beginning of December, to have a grand opening, if you will, celebration for all the donations and efforts and everything that went on to create the additional 2 courts at Platform Tennis. So once that gets finalized, we will definitely get a blast out there and let everybody know about that along with the board. There'll be, I'm sure there'll be a short presentation and some food and some drinks to be had. But yeah, that about covers it. Thank you.
Great, okay. Matters of the director.
3 items. So already mentioned the New Trier High School collaboration, and Lisa and I will be there on the 10th in the early morning to continue to advance some safety strategies, so that's exciting. Illinois Association of Park Districts had its legal symposium today. Peter Murphy, by the way, said hello to everybody who attended the review, so he passes on his regards. But Beth Ostrid and I attended that session to get an update on state and federal laws that apply to Family Medical Leave Act, a host of items, so more to come on that. And then finally, all the FOIAs that we've had, not all of them, but most of them that have been posted on Diligent Community within a private site to the directors, or the commissioners, excuse me, is now public. So all the FOIAs are public and available to any member of the public. And we're going to continue to add all the FOIAs that occurred in 2022 and try and go back as far as possible.
Perfect. Great, thank you very much. I know that's no small amount of work.
It's exciting.
I just have one question, which is out of sequence, but the IAPD conference, I think that we need to do some kind of vote on that at our next meeting, like from a budget standpoint, or I remember reading that, and I know Denise, you had.
I think it's the delegate, right?
It's the delegate, and
Okay.
it'll come up in December.
Okay, and
So-
will you email us, I don't know, you haven't done your update, have you? Will you be emailing us again to be like, I need to know about registration, or?
For the commissioners to participate?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that information's
It's hard
out.
for
So
me.
if you want to get registered, I can help you do that, and I'll
Okay.
send you the link. So
It's
you
hard
can-
for me to figure out this far out. How I can get out.
It's impressive, that's impressive.
But I just want to make sure, like procedurally with the budget, that we're all good.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I think we're ready. May I have, the board will enter into closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, 5 ILCS 120/2C1, the purchase or lease of property, 5 ILCS 120/2C5, the setting of a price for sale or lease of property, 5 ILCS 120/2C6, litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of a particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, 5 ILCS 120/2C11. May I have a motion to go into close?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Excellent. Roll call.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hemming?
Yes.
Commissioner Koto?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Excellent.
8:08.
Excellent.